Hey, it's Janelle Waz and welcome back for another video. While you may know of me through my Star Trek or video game content, I'm also a fan of tea. In fact, I probably drink tea almost every day, and a day that I don't drink tea is rather a dull day. One of the teas I enjoy on most days is matcha, which is a Japanese powdered green tea. Matcha is known for having a lot of nutrients, and while I probably could get into more detail about this, I'd rather not. At least not in this video. You may have seen matcha pop up more in recent years, maybe in desserts or those strangely flavored versions. What the hell? But me, I just drink classic matcha. No milk, no sugar, no honey, just matcha. So today I'm going to show all of you how I prepare a bowl of matcha. Bear in mind that there are probably more traditional, or in other words correct, ways to prepare matcha, but this is the way that I've developed over the years. And if you have any suggestions or tips for brewing matcha, please leave me a comment below. So first things first, let's start on what you need to brew matcha. I personally use an electric kettle that has settings to heat water for different kinds of tea, but you can use a traditional kettle that you can heat on the stove. Just be sure you have a thermometer to check water temperature. Since matcha is a green tea, you'll want to use cooler water, none of that boiling stuff. I like to prepare my matcha in a matcha bowl, or chawan, which literally translates from Japanese as tea bowl. While you can prepare it in a separate bowl and pour it into a mug, I like using a matcha bowl so I can prepare it and drink the matcha from the same bowl. I bought this bowl from David's Tea, on clearance no less, and as you can see, it's quite well loved. I also use a Matcha Whisk or chasen, which is made out of bamboo. It creates a nice foam on top of the matcha, which is what you should aim for. You can usually find these at tea specialty shops or even in matcha beginners kits. There are also matcha whisk holders, but personally I don't have one. I just have the matcha whisk. Here I have a traditional matcha scoop, or chashaku. It's the traditional method of measuring out the matcha powder, but you can use a regular measuring spoon as well. I usually use 2 scoops per bowl, which is roughly equivalent to 1 teaspoon. Lastly, the guest of honor, the matcha itself. I usually drink Adagio Tea's matcha, which comes in a 2-ounce container. Let's look at the matcha, shall we? Look at that. That is some fine green matcha there. So now we're ready to make the matcha. I use filtered water to make my matcha. You'll want to avoid using tap water just because you'll get more of the tap water flavor in your cup. You want to savor the tea, not the water. Since the kettle in my game room is also a tea maker, I set the kettle to heat only and the green tea setting, which heats it to about 165 degrees Fahrenheit. However, when I use my kitchen's kettle, the green tea setting is set to 175. The matcha container recommends 170, but I've had good luck making matcha with both kettles at 165 and 175. Okay, the water's ready. Let's crack open that matcha. As I've said before, I use 2 scoops of matcha from my matcha scoop for each bowl. Make sure you're careful when handling matcha since it's a very fine powder. You may even see matcha smoke rise up from the container. And a quick tap from the scoop to shake off any loose powder. And of course close up the matcha can. Now let's get the kettle and pour the water in. Pardon my shadow. You'll want to be careful when pouring the water just because I've done it where I poured the water in and some of the powder jumps out of the bowl. Now this is where my technique deviates from the traditional technique. I like to fill the bowl about 30 to 40% full at this point. Don't worry, I'll fill it up later on. Then I take my matcha whisk and vigorously whisk the matcha. Instead of whisking in a circle shape, whisk in an M or V shape, which will create a nice foam. We're starting to see some foam foaming. Let's keep whisking. Yep, it's starting to come together now, but just a little bit more. The goal of this foam is to have small bubbles, and we still have a couple of big bubbles in there. Now, you're not supposed to let the whisk touch the bottom of the bowl, but I like to take a couple of swipes with the whisk just to make sure I get all the matcha on the bottom. Trust me when I say you don't want any matcha stuck at the bottom of the bowl. There we go! That's a nice matcha foam right there. Now that I have a nice foam, I'll go ahead and fill up the rest of the bowl with water and do a quick whisking to blend the water in with the rest of the drink. And there we go! A nice cup of matcha. Thanks for tuning in to my very first tea video. If you're new here, make sure you check out my other videos. I do a lot of Star Trek analysis and video game reviews, but I have done some videos on other topics as well. And of course, if you like what you see, why not give my video a like and subscribe to my channel? Tell your friends! Until next time...
You said it is Earl Grey. I'd swear that it was Darjeeling.